Step into any American mall on a weekend, and you'll see maximalism in full bloom. Carts brimming, homes filled beyond capacity, and lives quietly weighed down by the very things meant to bring joy. Just a few streets away, you might find its opposite. A person living with almost nothing, their space calm, their mind unburdened. The question that divides these two worlds is simple yet haunting. Which path holds the real key to happiness? In today's journey, we'll uncover the surprising truths hidden in this clash between extreme minimalism and maximalism. Not just theories, but lessons that shape how freely we breathe, how clearly we think, and how lightly we walk through life. By the end, you'll see why stripping back, or piling on, can either imprison us or set us free. And perhaps, you'll recognize where you stand in this quiet tug-of-war for happiness. Walk into the home of a maximalist and you'll notice something subtle before the furniture or the glittering collections even register. It is the air itself, thicker, heavier, almost pressing against the senses. Every surface tells a story, but together, the stories blur into noise. The maximalist lifestyle thrives on accumulation. More furniture, more decor, more gadgets, more of everything. And yet, beneath the abundance lies an irony. Instead of happiness, excess often breeds a quiet fatigue. Every object requires attention, cleaning, maintenance, or repair. In this sense, possessions don't just sit silently. They demand a share of our time, our energy, our mind. Now contrast this with extreme minimalism. Here, space breathes. Rooms are not silent because they are empty, but because they no longer compete for your attention. When people first encounter such a space, they often mistake it for sterility, for absence. But after a while, they notice something else, an undercurrent of calm, as though the mind itself finally has room to settle. The difference between maximalism and extreme minimalism is not simply the quantity of objects, but the quality of life those choices invite. The maximalist seeks joy in addition, the minimalist in subtraction. History reminds us of this dichotomy. The Gilded Age in America was a maximalist dream. Grand mansions, overflowing rooms, layers upon layers of wealth on display. Yet diaries from the time reveal a disquiet, a restlessness, even among the privileged. Meanwhile, across the world, traditions rooted in restraint, whether in Japanese tatami rooms or Shaker homes in New England, spoke of another form of happiness, born not from ownership, but from freedom. Happiness, then, is not hidden in the things themselves, but in the relationship we have with them. Maximalism tethers us to weight. Extreme minimalism cuts the rope. One binds us to an endless cycle of upkeep. The other clears the path for living freely, lightly, and without the constant hum of stress. This is the first truth in the clash between the two. Happiness bends toward lightness, not toward more. If maximalism is heavy with objects, it is equally heavy with promises. The shelves lined with trinkets, the wardrobes bursting with clothes, the garages stacked with tools and toys, all whisper the same assurance. Happiness is just one more purchase away. To live maximally is to live in pursuit of abundance, as though enough could finally arrive with the next acquisition. But here lies the illusion. Abundance, when measured in things, is a horizon that recedes with every step. The more we collect, the further away contentment seems to drift. Extreme minimalism unravels this illusion by shifting the very definition of abundance. Instead of measuring plenty in possessions, it counts freedom as its wealth. A home without clutter is abundant in time. A mind without constant comparisons is abundant in peace. A day free from unnecessary obligations is abundant in energy. This is a wealth that multiplies by subtraction. Where maximalism feeds the appetite of consumerism, minimalism feeds the appetite of the soul. Consider the story of early pioneers who settled the American frontier. Their wagons could carry only the most essential items, tools, provisions, and perhaps a cherished family heirloom. Yet, what journals and letters often reveal is not despair at what was left behind, but a striking resilience and creativity. In the scarcity of possessions, they found resourcefulness. In the absence of distraction, they discovered community and clarity of purpose. Their lives, though stripped of excess, carried a richness far deeper than what maximalist culture would promise. The truth about happiness becomes sharper here. Maximalism, with all its color and ornament, dazzles at first sight but soon fades into burden. Extreme minimalism, at first austere, grows luminous with time. The real abundance is not found in the endless multiplication of objects, but in the subtraction of everything unnecessary, until what remains is not emptiness, but space for joy to breathe. This is the second truth in our exploration. Happiness does not come from holding more in our hands, but from holding less and holding it with meaning. The clash between extreme minimalism and maximalism is not confined to rooms or wardrobes. It plays out in the very landscape of the mind. Maximalism thrives on stimulation. The crowded shelves, the overflowing inbox, the buzzing notifications, all these fragments combine to create a constant low hum of distraction. At first, it feels alive, even exciting. But over time, this sensory storm turns into a fog. Happiness, in such a state, is difficult to grasp because the mind is too busy processing fragments of noise to rest in the present. Extreme minimalism, by contrast, seeks not only to strip away physical excess, but also to quiet the mental chatter that grows from it. A home with fewer objects offers fewer visual demands, fewer reminders, fewer micro-decisions tugging at the edges of thought. The effect may seem subtle, but science has long shown that environments rich in clutter correlate with higher stress and reduced focus. In contrast, spaces defined by simplicity often invite a measurable drop in anxiety. The external becomes internal, the room mirrors the mind. This tension between clutter and clarity can be traced back to older traditions. In monastic libraries of Europe, silence and sparse surroundings were not seen as deprivation but as design, an architecture of the mind. The emptiness of the room was intended to create fullness of thought. Maximalism, with its riot of colors and objects, promises happiness through stimulation, but its long-term harvest is fatigue. Minimalism promises happiness through restraint, and though its first impression may appear barren, it delivers clarity that grows richer with time. And here lies the third truth in this conflict. Happiness flourishes in spaces that allow the mind to rest. The maximalist home may glitter, but it rarely soothes. The minimalist space may appear plain, but it cradles a calm that no decoration can buy. When we peel back the layers of this conflict between extreme minimalism and maximalism, we soon discover it is not merely about objects or empty spaces, but about the delicate architecture of the human mind. Minimalism speaks to a yearning for quiet, for a life where clarity is not buried beneath heaps of distraction. The bare walls, the clean lines, the absence of clutter, they are all symbols of a deeper psychological desire for control, for freedom from the invisible chains that excess places on us. Extreme minimalism heightens this, asking us to find identity not in what we own, but in what we choose to live without. It cultivates a mental spaciousness where thoughts can breathe, where the weight of possessions no longer dictates the rhythm of our lives. Maximalism, however, appeals to a different strand of the psyche. It speaks to abundance, to the creative human impulse to surround oneself with color, memory, and story. Each possession becomes a brushstroke on the canvas of personal identity. A shelf bursting with books tells us who we are or who we wish to become. A gallery wall adorned with paintings, trinkets, and souvenirs from distant places anchors us to memory, reminding us of the fullness of life lived. Maximalism does not apologize for excess. Instead, it reframes it as richness, as an environment alive with stimulation and possibility. The friction arises when these two psychological needs, silence and stimulation, collide. Some thrive in emptiness, where the very sparseness of a room feels like a sanctuary. Others feel starved in such spaces, longing instead for the vibrancy that comes from abundance. The debate of minimalism versus maximalism, then, is not just about physical environments, but about which part of the human spirit we choose to nurture. And as we stand between these two poles, it becomes clear that neither is inherently superior. They simply serve different longings within us. The question becomes, which voice do we listen to when designing not just our homes, but our lives? As we arrive at the heart of this exploration, it becomes evident that the conversation between extreme minimalism and maximalism is not about crowning a victor, but about understanding the spectrum upon which we all live. Extreme minimalism, with its devotion to stripping away until only the essence remains, offers the gift of lightness, a life unburdened, a stage upon which one's thoughts and intentions can perform without distraction. Maximalism, in contrast, offers the fullness of narrative, a reminder that life is not only about silence, but also about the chorus of memory, texture, and expression. Each philosophy, taken to its extreme, illuminates both its power and its limitation. For in the house of the minimalist, there can sometimes be a hollowness, a space so empty that the soul longs for anchors, something tangible to remind it of warmth, of connection, of humanity's messy but beautiful abundance. And in the world of the maximalist, there can be a suffocation of the senses, a drowning in possessions and stories until clarity is lost and the individual becomes prisoner to the very richness they sought to cultivate. Neither extreme alone holds the full answer, for human beings are not creatures of singularity but of balance, forever walking the line between less and more. The true lesson, then, is not to declare extreme minimalism superior or maximalism triumphant, but to recognize that both are mirrors, reflecting what we need at different seasons of our lives. At times, we crave the austerity of the empty room, where our thoughts can echo and we can rediscover what matters. At others, we yearn for walls alive with memories and shelves brimming with tokens of who we are and who we have loved. To live wisely is to know when to step toward simplicity and when to lean into abundance, to listen to the shifting rhythm of our own lives. And so, the debate between extreme minimalism and maximalism is not one to be won, but one to be lived, carefully, consciously, and with the awareness that both silence and song have a place in the human story. So, in the end, the clash between extreme minimalism and maximalism is not a battle to be won, but a dialogue about how we choose to live. One side calls us to strip away until only the essence remains, while the other invites us to celebrate abundance, memory, and color. Both carry wisdom, and both carry warnings. What matters is not the label we wear, but the awareness we bring to our choices. The spaces we create become mirrors of the inner landscapes we are cultivating. Too little, and we risk silence that feels empty. Too much, and we risk noise that drowns meaning. The art lies in listening to ourselves and knowing when to embrace less and when to allow more. If this reflection sparked something within you, I invite you to continue exploring. On this channel, you'll find journeys into themes like the rise of microtopia, small spaces reimagined for big living, and the hollow era, a look at why we can feel empty even when surrounded by everything. Each video is another step into understanding how philosophy, design, and the human spirit intersect. So, if you're curious to go deeper, wander through the playlist waiting for you here. The story of living wisely is too vast for one perspective alone, and your next discovery may be just a click away.